Welcome back to another episode of TakeaSide, the sports talk show that lets you, the viewer, choose our winners. I'm your host, Jacob Polachek, and as always, be sure to get on Sided.co and the Sided Debates app for your chance to climb up that leaderboard and take home a $25 Amazon gift card. After an eventful Super Bowl Sunday that saw Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeat the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs, we'll be talking all of that and more. Before we get into that, we're going to be talking AFC, the top teams in the AFC. Today, I'm joined by Max McElroy and Blake Sevenbergen to talk who has the better future in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills or the Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns easily have the best chance to be the next contender in the AFC over the Kansas City Chiefs for three reasons. The Cleveland Browns are a young football team, average age of 26. The Cleveland Browns are a talented football team. They've got Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, Myles Garrett, etc. And they have a ton of cap space. The Cleveland Browns have a ton of cap space to bring in more pieces this year to build their team even better than it is right now.
Well, I have to disagree with the easily part. I think a lot of teams in the AFC are really great, and I think it's because of the young quarterbacks. And look at all of the AFC teams. Who is that best young quarterback outside of Patrick Mahomes? It is Josh Allen, and the improvement that he had this year with Stephon Diggs. And I think that in the AFC, it's about offense. The AFC proved this year that no one can stop the Chiefs. So then it's like, oh, you got to score with the Chiefs now. And so I think that Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, I think that is easily one of the top duos in the NFL, and I don't see that stopping for the next few years.
See, my problem with the Buffalo Bills is even though, yes, they have Josh Allen, they have Stephon Diggs, when it came to the AFC Championship, they scored more points than the Cleveland Browns did against the Chiefs. But the Browns played the Chiefs closer than the Bills did. Even though Patrick Mahomes was out towards the end of the game, they played well. You know, when the Browns needed to make a play, they made a play. And if they're a stop and a touchdown away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, the Bills were not that close.
I think the main concern with the Browns, I think that their defense is pretty bad. I think they have a really good front line, a defensive line, and obviously a great offensive line. But I think the main thing is that I think Baker Mayfield is still a question mark. Now, he improved a lot this year, but it's not like he was throwing 35 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He turned the ball over a little bit. He didn't throw for an insane amount of touchdowns. I think he was at like 22. And so I think he's still a big question mark. And when you don't have your quarterback, how far can you really get along in the playoffs? The competition is the Chiefs. That is what they made that very clear. And so how do you beat him? Oh, it's got to be the quarterback play.
See, I agree to an extent. Baker Mayfield's still a little bit of a question mark. But this year compared to last year, he's taken great strides in the right direction. And also, they have a two-headed monster in the backfield. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt are an unstoppable force in the backfield. Great running back pair. Baker Mayfield, when he's giving the ball to them and then running play action off of it, that offense is unstoppable. And when you've got a genius like Kevin Stefanski running the show, he's great. NFL Coach of the Year this year, and he's only going to get better. I think the Cleveland Browns, the ceiling it's astronomically high for them. And plus, they get a couple pieces on their secondary with the cap money they have. That defense is good too.
Yeah, I think that Kevin Stefanski is awesome. I think he did a great job this year. And it's really interesting to me because the AFC, I think everyone talks about the Chiefs as this new dynasty, but the AFC has a lot of really good teams. Mm-hmm. Not only that, but they're young teams. So I don't necessarily know if the Chiefs are going to be this is the team that can, run away and start a new dynasty, because I think there are a lot of teams that are going to be there for a while. But even talking about the Bills, it's the Bills are a young team still. I think they definitely need some pass rush, obviously. But at the end of the day, you're looking at the guy. I think in terms of arm talent, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, I think are pretty similar. Now, I don't know if Josh Allen can throw it, when he's falling down sideways on the ground. But it's just talking about a guy who can throw the ball deep, receivers who can get open, and I don't think you can really stop that anymore in the AFC.
Yeah, I agree. The AFC is loaded. Tons of talent in the AFC. With the Bills, you're right. They need some defensive pressure on the defensive line. Another problem for them, though, they're negative in cap. And Matt Milano, one of their star middle linebackers, he's in free agency. And they don't have the money to pay him. That's another piece that they could potentially lose.
Yeah, it'll definitely be an interesting offseason, but we are going to go to break, and we will see you when we get back.
Welcome back. Last MLB season, we saw the LA Dodgers take home their first World Series title since 1988 with a win over the Tampa Bay Rays. However, this offseason, the emerging Padres, led by MVP candidate Fernando Tatis Jr., are emerging as a popular pick to take home the NL West crown after adding Cy Young pitcher Blake Snell. I'm joined now by Marina Saver and Ryan Atchison to debate who will win the NL West.
I think the Padres will win the NL West. Look, you got to give a ton of respect and credit to the San Diego front staff right now. General Manager A.J. Preller and owner Ron Fowler have sent the message that they're ready to win now. And one of the biggest needs they've addressed this offseason is adding their pitching. They went and traded for Blake Snell, former Cy Young winner. They went and traded for Yu Darvish, adding them on top of finishing in third in wins, pitching wins this season, and they're fifth in strikeouts. And one of the things that's really scary is they had more quality starts than the LA Dodgers last season. So you're adding Snell and Yu Darvish on top of Danielson Lamet, who finished 2020 All-MLB team with a 2.09 ERA, and he was the fifth lowest in MLB.
Yeah, you talk about pitching, and of course the Padres did put together an absolutely stellar offseason. That is not even a debate. It was incredibly impressive, and I'm not going to take that from them. But you follow them in the offseason, it's like, oh, they're adding, Snell and Darvish and all of these great pitchers, and they are a new and improved Padres team. And then the Dodgers just go and sign Trevor Bauer, and it's like a punch in the throat to the Padres. It's like, to me, this relationship kind of seems, and I won't say that with any confidence that I think the Padres for sure will win the NL West, because the Dodgers, I think, are just such an intense threat in that division. And I don't like the Dodgers. Trust me, as a Diamondbacks fan, I don't want to play either of these teams. I think we're going to get embarrassed because of how tough this division is. But I just think this relationship seems sort of like the Padres are like the little brother that's just trying to get big enough and trying to get strong enough to finally take on Big Brother, and then I just don't think this is the year that it's going to happen. I think the Dodgers are too powerful, and they just have so much depth in literally every sense of the word that it's just unfair and it's frustrating. But yeah, I am not confident enough in what the Padres have put together, even though it's stellar and it's incredible, that it will be enough to push the Dodgers out of that first place spot that they have held for the past 8 years.
That is very true. They have held first place in the last 8 years. But keep in mind, the Padres this year finished second place. Mm-hmm. That was the first time since 2010 where they finished higher than third. This team is in the right direction. With Manny Machado, with Fernando Tatis Jr., you added Drexen Profar a couple years ago. You added Eric Hosmer a few years ago. You got Trent Grisham, who breakout candidate last year, Gold Glover. I mean, this team is third in RBIs, fourth in home runs, 10th best batting average. This hitting team is scary. And for how many home runs they hit and how many grand slams they got, it is ridiculous of how stellar this team can be. And with adding with the pitching staff, and they've addressed that, this team is scary. This team 1 through 8 is scary to deal with.
Yeah, they're scary. And again, I would not want to play the Padres, but I just think, they're terrifying. But are they scarier than the Dodgers? Are they enough to take down the Dodgers? And I'm not confident that the answer to that question is yes. You talk about pitching. The Dodgers have essentially a 6-man rotation from which they can choose five starters and have a guy like Dustin May or Urias who can go to the bullpen just because they just can. And Bauer's talking about him, he wants to pitch every fourth game, and if that's allowed and he can do that, that would be incredible for them, because if he can have a year like last year, even if it's not, as incredible, that would still be great for the Dodgers. It goes without saying how wonderful of a signing he is. So I don't know. And then you talk about hitting and fielding. I think the Dodgers have the advantage at catcher and in the outfield over the Padres if you're going head to head, and everywhere else I'd say they're pretty much equal. And something that I hear so much is that, well, the Padres just have so much fun and they have so much team chemistry and they're just such a fun team. And yeah, they have fun, but think about back to last postseason, who took all the fun away? It was Betts and Bellinger robbing all those home runs and just making the Padres essentially, they swept them in the postseason in that round of the playoffs. And I don't know, the whole narrative with the Padres is, they have all these budding stars and they have this star in the making in Tatis Jr., whereas the Dodgers have 2 of the league's 5 best players in Betts and Bellinger playing on the same team right next to each other in the outfield. So again, I'm not saying that the Padres cannot, that I don't believe that there's any chance this year or even in the near future that they can finally knock LA out of that first place spot. But am I confident enough to say that they will? Absolutely not, because of the threat that LA poses in this division.
Very true. 4 different players, 10 home runs, a lot within 60 games. You got Tatis, Machado, Myers, and Grisham. Those 4 were projected to hit at least 40 home runs, if not higher 30s. So with this team and with their chances of really going far, and the Dodgers, they beat them with pitching last year. That's what got them to the World Series. And if it wasn't for Blake Snell getting pulled, who would have known? But I'm really confident in this Padres team this year, and I think they're going to do outstanding, and they might give the Dodgers a run for the money.
Yeah, I think it'll be really fun to watch. I, of course, am not looking forward to playing either of these teams, to my Diamondbacks having to play either of these teams in the NL West, but it'll be really great to see as the season starts and progresses how this division ends up turning out. I think it'll be really great to watch. But that's all the time we have right now. We're going to throw it over to a break, and we'll be right back.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
Now, after a controversial first half of Sunday's Super Bowl that saw numerous penalties and challenges, many are arguing that the NFL challenges should be reviewed by a third party as they do in the NBA and MLB. I'm joined by TakeaSide's very own Jack McGarr and Jerome Sweeney to debate.
Yeah, I mean, with the NBA, they've had the Secaucus third-party review in New York for 4 years now, and it has not missed at all yet. They have a third party that constantly reviews every game. They have one referee that's outside of the game that can review every big call in each game. I don't really know why the NFL hasn't used this. I mean, with the biggest game of the year watched by tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of people, and you don't have a third party that can review controversial big-time calls that can affect the entire outcome of a game, I just don't see why you would use that, especially when one call can make the difference between who wins a championship. I just don't get that.
So we've been seeing, particularly in the NFL, oh, that's a bad flag, that's a horrible call. Let's get a challenge flag out there for it, and we'll see how that goes. They tried it last year with offensive pass interference and defensive pass interference. We all know how that went. Didn't really work out, but those were just the referees on the field that were reviewing their own calls. So obviously, you're going to see your own call, and you're not going to want to overturn it. But, however, if you look at the NFL's total penalties this year compared to last year, there was over 700 fewer penalties this year than last year. If this game is not the Super Bowl, I don't think we have an argument here because, in a way, controversial penalties, yes, but they are penalties and the referees see the play once in time and they can only do so much about it. So I think they have every right to be able to make their call, make it firm because it's what we all love at the end of the day. It's what gets the fans talking. It's what makes you love your team. It's what generates rivalries in the NFL. It's great business for the NFL.
Exactly, and I think you mentioned too, there were a lot less penalties this year overall. I think especially that fans do want to see less penalties at the end of the day. But when you're not making crucial calls, especially, I mean, there were a couple pass interference calls that were called that I think were a little weak, and then there were a couple that were pretty blatant that weren't called in the end. And I think when you have less penalties, again, fans do want to see that, but when you're missing crucial plays that really can turn the tide of a game, and you can't challenge that as a coach or a team, and you're really missing that crucial play, I think that really screws you over in the end.
I mean, it's sort of like in college basketball in the NBA, you can't challenge a foul. You get fouled, you can't really do anything about it. It's a soft foul, it's a real foul, whatever. You just got to keep playing the game. You got to battle back from it. I think having an extra review party would be good for the NFL. But do I think Roger Goodell wants to do that? I think no, he doesn't. I think he wants to just have his referees be in control of the league. We saw what happened with the replacement refs back in whatever year that was, 2013. Didn't work. So we have the best referees in the world in the NFL currently. So it's a system. It's going to be flawed, but at the end of the day, it's the best system, the best they can do in the NFL.
I mean, I think you mentioned it too last year when you could challenge pass interference on the defensive side and the offensive side. I think what really was wrong with that was you had the referees that made that call on the field review it after that. And those refs aren't going to want to say, hey, I was wrong in real time. You need a third party that goes on and says, hey, I think you really missed this call. Here's what we're going to do, and we're going to change that outcome. So I think the benefit of having a third party is that they can they can say that you're wrong and not have it be, bad on their end.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, and there's one thing for sure is Roger Goodell has another controversy on his hands, and there's only time will tell what he's going to do about this whole review penalty thing going forward. All right, that's all the time we have today. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. As always, head over to Sided.co and the Sided Debates app for more. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at TakeaSideKU. For all of us here at TakeaSide, I'm Jacob Polachek, and we'll see you again next week.